Shadow Eliminators by Kento Amamiya. So this is based off the one-shot Ruirui Senki, which is the actual name of the series. Shadow Eliminators is just the English version. Kind of like how Jujutsu Kaisen was called Sorcery Fight for a while, or Sorcery Battle, something like that, before it got changed back to Jujutsu Kaisen because of the backlash. I'm hoping there's some backlash to this name, and it goes back to Ruirui Senki, just because I'm not really feeling Shadow Eliminators. Sounds kind of lame. But this is a new series from Weekly Shonen Jump. Came out earlier this week, and it is a ghost fighting series, which is not anything new. We've seen a lot of those lately, especially from Weekly Shonen Jump. I've done reviews for some of them on this channel. Pretty much all of them have not survived and have gone the axe. Let's see if this one ends up surviving for a few more chapters or not. So the basic premise: Kasane are spirits who latch onto the shadows of people's hearts, but as long as Yayoi and Aoba are around, evil spirits won't be hurting any students at the school. Beautiful art and occult action. The door to the unknown has now been opened. And so, yeah, the very first page actually has a pretty cool line. It's front and back, light and dark. Where there is light, there is shadow. A lion with the shape of a shadow. It exists in our world too. It kind of gives you a little bit of what it's kind of about, but the basic gist is that in this world, people, if they have negative feelings, negative emotions, grudges, anger, envy, it starts to build up. And the more it builds up, the person starts becoming infected, quote unquote, by like a ghost virus. Basically, what I mean by that is it kind of, this negativity latches onto them until eventually it overtakes them and they turn into a Kasane or a Hollow. They're both interchangeable names. Our main character uses both of them. Earlier on, he calls it a Hollow. Later on, he calls it a Kasane. Basically, negative emotions can turn you into a creature that Ayabe has to exercise. There's the basic gist of the story. We have two main characters. We have Aoba and Yao Yao. I'm going to start with Yao Yao first. Yao Yao is the character that you see on the top right with the glasses. His nickname is Justice Man, and that basically kind of explains his whole character. He's hardcore when it comes to justice. His grandfather was a police officer, someone that he looked up to, and because of that, he has a strong sense of justice, and his version of justice is following the rules. You got to follow the rules exactly. You can't break the rules at all. Breaking the rules leads to non-justice, which leads to people being hurt. The more you follow the rules, the better off everyone will be, according to Yao Yao. And we even see how like strong he is when it comes to the sense of justice. The very first time we see him, he's standing in front of the school gate with a stopwatch. And as soon as it hits 9:10, he closes the gate because that's when school begins. Even when a student is rushing towards the gate and is only like a second behind, Yao Yao still shuts the gate on him because he's late, even by a second. So that's how strong his sense of justice is. Everyone calls him Justice Man. I don't know if it's supposed to be like a term of endearment at first, but eventually it kind of just becomes mockery. No one really likes Yao Yao. Like, they don't like torment him or anything like that, but they don't really hang out with him because, like I said, he's a huge stickler for the rules. Meanwhile, we have Aoba. Aoba is a new student. The very first time we see him, he's actually leaping over the gate that Yao Yao has just closed, and he's completely soaked. And of course, Yao Yao like berates him for not only showing up late, but showing up just drenched in water. And our character introduces himself, basically tells the whole class that my name is Aoba. I'm here for some training, and then once I'm done with training, I'm going to be leaving. So like, don't worry about me. As Yao Yao starts trying to point out, like, hey, why are you dressed in different clothing rather than the school outfit? Why did you show up completely wet? We find out that Aoba also has a sense of justice, but his is completely different from Yao Yao's. Aoba is someone that is completely fine with breaking or bending the rules, as long as if it's to help others. So while Yao Yao believes that you help others by following the rules, Aoba believes that it's okay to break them if someone else benefits from that break in a positive way. And I was like, okay, this is kind of a nice contrast between our two main characters. They're basically like mirror images of themselves. They both have the same exact goal, which is to help others, but they both go about it in different ways. That can be kind of interesting dynamic between the two of them. But yeah, we see that Aoba is willing to help out others with no problem whatsoever. Like in the beginning, the reason why he's wet is because some woman's handkerchief was flying in the air and he jumped to grab it and he ended up jumping off a bridge and landing in water. Later on, while Yao Yao is berating him for breaking the rules, Aoba is climbing a tree to get a teacher's purse that got stuck up there. So yeah, as soon as he sees someone in need, he immediately jumps in to help. And while he's being berated, we have this moment where he senses something. He screams a hollow, and then he rushes into a classroom and he sees this girl basically complaining about her art. And there's like these weird vines slash tentacles. I don't know how to call it. Basically, these weird things that are kind of binding her. And Yao Yao, of course, has chased after Aoba, and he's entered the classroom too. And it's like this void where it's no longer a classroom, it's just like this blackness. And he sees what's going on. He has no idea what he's seeing. And Aoba dashes in to help, but he immediately gets wrapped up in these vine tentacle bindings, whatever you want to call them. And that's when his grandmother shows up. And his grandmother is the blonde-haired woman that we see on the bottom right. So yeah, his grandmother looks very, very young. She looks like she could be either like an upperclassman or even a teacher or something. But nope, she's his grandma. Which kind of makes me wonder if maybe the author was taking some notes from Dan to Dan, because Dan to Dan also has a young-looking grandma in that series. Especially when you look at the original one-shot for this, Ruirui Senki, the grandma is an actual grandma. She's like an old lady. But here, she looks really, really young. But basically, she appears, and she has this tool that Aoba forgot to bring to school. She throws it to Aoba, and he uses it to banish the hollow, and the girl goes back to normal, the one that was infected. And one thing I'll mention about the girl is I think she might be a reference to the one-shot. Because in the one-shots, the story is about this girl who becomes infected and becomes a hollow because she's an artist, and one of the other classmates is basically getting more attention than her. More people are praising the classmate than they are her. And so she turns into a hollow. And here we have a girl turning into a hollow for the same reason. Even though the girl looks different, I wonder if it's supposed to just be kind of like a quick reference to that. But basically, the two of them go back to the grandma's shrine where we kind of get introduced to the world about the fact that there are hollows in this world, or Kasane, whatever you want to call them, and that they take people who have negative emotions, basically strong passions and negative thoughts. Those shadows of the heart are what the threads latch onto. Then they take form and become Kasane. So they latch on to someone with these negative, strong emotions until eventually they take over, and the person is no more until they get exercise, and then they go back to their regular self. And I'm not going to break down any more of what goes on in this chapter. That's basically like the halfway point. So you still have like another half that I won't spoil. We get like another confrontation with the two of them coming across another Kasane. I won't say who it is or anything like that. I will say that I enjoyed this chapter, but I do feel like it's kind of generic at the same time. The artwork is great. I love the artwork for this. It's nice, it's clean. By that I mean that it's not like too busy. There's another manga plus series that I'm reading. It's called Diasporizer. It's a good series, but the artwork is way too busy. Like there's so much going on that sometimes it can be kind of hard to see what's actually happening, because like the entire panel, like every inch of the panel is just littered with something. This series is the complete opposite of that. It's nice and clean. It's not too busy. Action scenes are pretty decent for the most part. So I love the artwork. Characters are kind of fine. Aoba kind of seems like your typical shonen protagonist. Yao Yao is kind of annoying, but I feel like, he's going to grow into a better character, but he's not there right now. Right now, I just find him a bit annoying. Those are the only two characters we really get. I guess we get the grandma too. Grandma's just one of those like somewhat comedic characters in the sense that she basically spends most of her time yelling and beating up Aoba. and she's like the one who's mostly knowledgeable about this Kasane world and all that stuff. But yeah, the basic plot, like I said, it's just kind of generic. It's nothing that I haven't seen before. And I'm okay with that because I kind of follow the belief that every story has been done before. Like that's a saying, every story has already been told. It's just how you tell it that matters. That kind of sets you apart from other stories with the same typical genre or trope or premise. This hasn't done anything to set it apart, but it is the first chapter. So I'm willing to, give it time to kind of grow and find its identity. The only question is, will Shonen Jump give this series time? Because there have been a lot of series, most of them which I have covered on this channel, that either were really great or were somewhat generic but had a lot of promise, and they just weren't given enough time to, showcase what they can do. They weren't given enough time to find their identity. Or once they did start finding their identity, they were quickly axed because it was already at that point where the company just gave up on them. So I'm hoping this series finds its identity quickly and starts doing some new things. So I'm okay with the generic premise as long as if the execution starts becoming unique. Hasn't become unique yet, but like I said, it's just the first chapter. Hopefully we'll start seeing some uniqueness as it goes. I will say that kind of prefer the one shot over chapter 1. I think the one shot is a lot better, especially for newbies. And by that I mean it's better to introduce the characters and the world and stuff. I think the one shot does a better job of explaining things. So I'll kind of go over the one shot a little bit. In the one shot, Aoba actually has a twin brother. And there's this legend about these two twins who were looking into this black lake, and one of them kind of got snatched up. And Aoba's brother basically ended up getting corrupted and kind of turns into this like Satan Faustian character. So basically, in the one shot, when people have these negative emotions and stuff, once it gets really strong in that person, they see like a vision of Aoba's brother. Aoba's brother who like appears to them and basically makes a deal with them. Like, hey, I will cure whatever ails you. You just got to take my hand. And so the people take their hand, they shake it, basically the Faustian deal. And he kind of starts controlling them afterwards. Once they reach like a breaking point and they trigger and get turned into a hollow, he now has control over them. And so Aoba's quest is that he's going to try to stop his brother. He wasn't able to save his brother in the past, but now he's going to try to save his brother by stopping him from corrupting more people. And I was like, okay, that's cool. Like, I like that idea. I don't know if they're going to do that here. We didn't really get to see that, but we get introduced to that in the one shot. Also in the one shot, the main character actually isn't Aoba. It's actually this schoolgirl. And it's the girl I mentioned earlier. She is someone who is an artist. She's really good at paintings and drawing and illustrations and stuff. And it's something that she's been working on for a long time, for many years. And a lot of people have praised her and stuff because she's good at it. But she's good at it because she's been doing this for a long time. And there's this classmate that looks up to her and basically ends up joining the art class. And she has no experience whatsoever, but she has like a natural born gift of drawing. And her drawings are better than the main character, to the point where everyone starts praising her instead of the main character. And because of this, the main character starts getting envious and jealous and hurts. Like, how dare this girl? Like, I spent so many years working on my craft, busting my ass to get good at this. She picks it up with no experience and is already better than me, is already getting praise over me. Like, that's not fair. And we see her like slowly becoming infected. Like, she's a bit jealous at first, but then she meets Aoba. And I even like the introduction of Aoba in that one shot. We see Aoba, he's like slouching on a park bench, completely covered in cats. And basically, he's telling the girl that animals hate him. But he loves animals. He can't like, he doesn't like hurting creatures or people or whatever. So he's like, if it makes them happy to be all over me, then whatever, let them be all over me. If it makes them happy to bite me, then they can bite me. I don't care. And he ends up getting lost. He's trying to find supplies for his grandma. And the main character helps him, leads him to the store, gets the supplies, even helps him carry it to the grandma's shrine. And the grandma notices that this girl is infected and basically puts this like talisman on her to kind of stop the progress. And they're both walking on this bridge when the classmate shows up. And as soon as the main character sees her, it just triggers her negative emotions and she hits her breaking point and she becomes a hollow. She becomes a Kasane. And Aoba is forced to fight her. Even the way she looks is pretty cool. I'm not going to be showing it, but I will be leaving links in the description below for you to read it yourself. I just do that because of copyright reasons. He fights her. He basically reveals that he has like this sword that when he slices at people who are infected, the blade actually goes right through them and it only hurts the ghost that's possessing them. So he basically slices right through the girl's neck and she turns out to be completely fine, but it kills the ghost that's infecting her. She turns back to normal. She realizes that, she shouldn't be jealous of others and she makes up with the classmate and they become friends. And that's pretty much how it ends. And I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. I like the introduction of Aoba. I liked how we saw how a Kasane becomes, like how it's created, because we see it with our main character in that one shot. We see her becoming infected. We see it go through its stages before she finally hits her breaking point and fully transforms into a Kasane. In this chapter, though, we never see that. We never see anyone transforming into a Kasane. We see them after they've already become one. The art girl that we see in chapter 1, by the time Aoba shows up to the classroom, she's already a Kasane. The character that we see later in the second half of the chapter, which I won't spoil, by the time we see that character, they're already a Kasane. There is no transformation moment. There is no, we see how they're becoming infected. They've already infected and transformed by the time we see them. So it's like, okay, that kind of sucks. I kind of would have liked to see the slow burn of them becoming infected, see the stages. I thought that would have been kind of cool. Yeah, I kind of like the one shot a little bit more than chapter 1. With that said, I do enjoy the chapter. I really enjoyed the artwork. Characters are okay. Like I said, Aoba is fine. He's just a little bit generic, but he's likable. Yao Yao, not really my cup of tea. I don't really care for characters like him, but hopefully he grows, or hopefully the interactions that we see between him and Aoba is kind of nice, because Aoba is one of those, he's very aloof. So he's shrugs off all of Yao Yao's yelling and berating and stuff, rather than taking it to heart. So they had this nice kind of comedic mesh where Aoba is kind of the comic relief and Yao Yao is the straight man of the group. But again, it is kind of generic. Doesn't really do anything new. So hopefully that will change. But there you go. That's my basic review for Shadow Eliminators. I'd give it a 6.5 out of 10. So my grading scale is 5 is average, 6 is good, 7 is great, 8 is fantastic, 9 is near perfect, 10 is perfect. I've only ever given one thing a 10 the entire history of this channel. So 10s are very, very hard. A lot of stuff usually falls within the 6 to 7 scale. This is a 6.5. It is good, not great, but it has the potential to be. There's a lot of potential here. Just right now, it's not really there yet, but it could be. Like I said, has a lot of potential. It's very generic. Hopefully, it starts doing some unique things. But I do recommend checking it out. If you like Jujutsu Kaisen, Bleach, that kind of stuff. You know what this actually reminds me a lot of? Phantom Seer. I don't know if anyone knows that series. I did do a video for that series. This reminds me a lot of Phantom Seer. I'm getting kind of the same vibes. Hopefully the series ends up lasting longer than Phantom Seer. I guess we'll see. But there you go. They're Shadow Eliminators. Hope you enjoyed. Hope to see you next time. Take care. Later.